Shut up and sit down.
Okay, everyone, welcome to the Dirty Deuce podcast. I hope that you all are surviving the Coronapocalypse the same way that we are. I just wanted to get into it, talk about it a little bit. So, buddy, what have you been experiencing there?
I would say over here in California. So the first thing that we notice is an incredible amount of misinformation. A lot of people panicking. The social fabric around here started to fray a little bit. The stores completely sold out. There was super long lines. Probably one of the scarier things out here is a couple of the vets that I know work at the local gun shops. Right now, the local gun shops are completely sold out of guns. All of the guns. Even shit guns. They're also completely sold out of ammo. There were people going there buying a lever action and just buying whatever ammo they could get their hands on, even if it wasn't for the gun they bought. And a lot of them are first-time buyers. So a lot of people have been arming up, buying all the groceries, that kind of stuff. There's been, at least in the neighborhoods that I know of, people have been going around stealing Amazon packages. As I had mentioned before, I watched a guy get brained with a pickle jar at a Smart and Final. Yeah, just
oh my god, dude, could you imagine going to the ER during the Coronapocalypse and trying to explain to them that you got pickled?
Yeah, no, about the size of a jar of mayonnaise. Two guys were arguing, and one of the guys just grabbed the jar and smacked the other guy in the head. The guy went down and was very obviously and immediately bleeding, and the guy put the jar back. There's a lot more security guards out, and especially at the stores. It's calmed down over this last week, but initially it was completely sold out. Me and my girlfriend, we went to the store, and there was a line going all the way back to the back of the store, around, and then back out the front door. People buying all sorts of weird shit, pretty much anything and everything. And then also, you would just get kind of shitty people that would kind of go around eyeballing people or just going up and taking shit out of their cart, trying to cut in line. It's pretty well knocked off quite a bit, and I think it's because everybody, stuffed their refrigerators and shit full, and finally the stores around here are starting to meet demand. But it's been a little hectic. There's a lot of people with a lot of food now, and a lot of people that are, we'll say, I don't know about well-armed, but a lot of first-time firearm owners, and a lot of the gun shops are shutting down to restock.
Jeez, that's crazy.
Oh, also, all the schools shut down. San Diego is finally the kind of place that I would want to actually live in. There's maybe 6 cars on the highway at any one time, anywhere that you're driving, no matter how fast you're driving. So there's virtually no traffic. There's a bunch of old people walking around like they don't give a shit. And pretty much everything's closed. Last time I really went out, to do something other than go to the grocery store or go buy ammo, was going down to Little Italy, which is in the downtown that we have here. And it was really sparse already, and that was last Friday. And then when the order went out to kind of close everything down, people have just been hanging out at home, eyeballing each other, that kind of stuff. So the social fabric around here has been, I would say, frayed a little bit, and it's been tested, but it's getting a little better.
Interesting. I haven't really been able to take the temperature of the world around me. I am currently broadcasting from an undisclosed location in Colorado, very kind of deep in the wilderness. That was not some sort of prepper design. I just happened to be visiting family who live out in the country and got sort of stranded here with the whole lockdowns. But it is a good place to survive the apocalypse, so kind of worked out in my favor. I've been to the local stores, and they're all completely rat-fucked, which I find interesting because I understand if you're going to panic and buy, let's say, all of the rice or the beans toilet paper's a little weird, but okay. That seems to be popular. The frozen section was just cleared out. And the meats and, like, the dairy.
Yeah.
I'm curious who is hoarding all of these perishables and where are they storing them? Were there thousands of people before this thing hit that just had completely empty freezers? Or are they just... we had a snowstorm, maybe they're just burying it out in the snow. I don't understand the logic. I assume all this stuff's going to go bad.
Well, no snow here, ever, but yeah, a lot of people are just... Like I said, a lot of people hoarded a bunch of shit. Now they're sitting just like, well, I can't put anything else in the fridge. And most of the shit's going to start going bad. So I think people bought to their capacity and now they're just kind of sitting.
Yeah, so I think of the people that are freaking out about the coronavirus, I think there's essentially three categories. One, there's idiots who just like to panic, and they're the ones who bought all the toilet paper and have like 50 jars of milk right now and like an entire refrigerator filled with, I don't know, bacon. Shit that's gonna go bad, right?
Okay.
So I think that's a small portion of the population, but significant. The second group is the people who knows about those people and knows that those people are going to put a ridiculous demand on the supply and logistics system. So they try and beat into the punch and get enough stuff so that when the shit hits the fan, they have theirs, which also kind of puts a panic and puts pressure on the logistics system. I think the third group that's kind of freaking out about this are the people in government. I'm going to add a fourth group to that now that I'm thinking about it. People in government or public health or something like that, some sort of responsibility for the public service role where they are concerned about the hospital's capacity to deal with a surge, so they're imposing these restrictions to not stop the coronavirus, but slow the spread so that it doesn't overwhelm the hospital systems. And I think the fourth group is the people, mostly in the media, that are hyping the coronavirus to get views, to get clicks, and to make money.
Yeah.
And I think those are the four people really pushing the whole coronavirus narrative.
Yeah, I can see that. Maybe this is a fourth and a half group, unrelated to the fourth group. Well, I guess maybe just a different group. I'm noticing there's a lot of people that are, at least on this side of the pond, very wary of it. Well, not so much wary of the virus, but wary of people and what people are doing.
I think that's fair.
And I kind of wonder if that's why people are stocking up so much.
Are you concerned about the virus itself?
Me personally, no. Well, concerned for my older friends, but not for myself.
I'm about in the same boat. I realize it's a virus. It's going to be deadly. Deadlier than most, but the risk is mostly to older people when you look at the statistics. And I don't want to be part of the problem as a carrier of the pathogen. But as far as the virus itself, I'm not that concerned. My chief concern is that we have totally fucked the economy. Now, I don't mean that as a criticism for people who shut everything down, because I think if we didn't shut everything down, the economy's still going to be fucked because everybody's panicking. Once this thing got out of mainland China, everyone was fucked.
Okay.
And my concern about the economy boils down to one thing: the Social Security Trust. Now, I know when most people hear Social Security, especially people like our age, they're like, okay, that's something that I'm going to get way down the line. But I'm going to kind of break it down for any of the listeners who aren't completely in the know about how the government has been fucking us. So, the way that the government pays to keep the lights on is they issue bonds, which are essentially just loans to themselves. And people pay that. And the way that works is, let's say you get we'll just keep the numbers round. You pay me, the government, $10 for a bond. You give me $10 now, and 5 years from now, I give you $15. Right?
Okay.
But it's that $10 that you give me that I use to pay the policemen and the street sweepers and the army and everything that keeps the lights on in the government. Right? That's where they get all of their operating funds from.
Okay.
When it comes time to pay these back, some of it gets paid back through taxes, but as you know, we've been running a deficit pretty much since the end of World War II, and have just been increasing the debt ceiling with no limits, just getting into deeper and deeper debt. So whenever it comes time to pay that, and the government doesn't have the money, and they can't get it through extra taxes because nobody's going to vote to increase their own taxes or elect somebody who runs on the platform of increasing their taxes, they take the money out of the Social Security Trust Fund. The way Social Security is supposed to work is the government assumes that everyone is too stupid to save for their own retirement, so that we're going to force you to do it. Right? We, the government, are going to take your money away from you, and we're going to lock it up safe until you're old, and then we're going to give it back to you. That way you can't screw yourself by spending all your money. Right?
Okay.
But then the government goes into that pool of money that's supposed to be protected, that you paid into,
Okay.
and takes out of it to pay back all of their operating funds and their bonds. So that thing is almost empty at this point. So, let's play a little what-if game, okay? You're an investor buying government bonds. You know tomorrow that the Social Security Trust Fund that I'm going to pay you back with is going to be completely out of money. Are you going to buy those bonds?
No.
Okay. What if you know it's going to run out of money, let's say, this week? Are you going to buy them?
No.
A year?
No.
5 years?
Depends. Am I getting paid before 5 years?
That's where we're getting into it, right?
Yeah.
100 years.
Yeah. That's like those 99-year leases from Bureau of Land Management and stuff. Yeah. I'll be dead before it's a problem.
Exactly. So, at some point, and we don't know what this point is, all these people that are buying the bonds are going to stop buying the bonds.
Okay.
Because they assume that the government will not be able to pay them back. But as people stop buying the bonds and the government starts to collapse, it makes it so the government can't fund them back. So it's a self-fulfilling prophecy. It's like how a run on the bank makes the bank collapse.
Okay.
So the unknown variable is consumer confidence in the government. At some point, if we don't pay back the national debt and put money back in the Social Security Trust, people are going to stop paying government bonds, they're going to stop buying them, and the government is not going to have any money to keep the lights on. At that point, there's two options. They can either default on all their debts, just like Greece did, and say, all these people that either work for us or we owe money to, all these old people that have their pensions in government bonds, we're just not going to pay you. All these retirees, we're just not going to pay you. Fuck you, we don't care. Right?
Okay.
The other option they can do is just turn on the printing press. Oh, we owe you $100? Bing, 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 here's $100. We owe you $1,000? Bing, 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 here's $1,000. That's going to lead to hyperinflation. And the thing is, if they default on the debt or they hyperinflate their way out of it, either way is going to crash the American economy. And the American economy is so big and everything's tied to it, it's going to crash the global economy. And that's when you're going to start seeing the true apocalypse. I'm not concerned about the virus itself.
Okay. I hear what you're saying. Do you think consumer confidence is the only factor at play, though?
It's kind of a chicken and the egg thing. The cause is out of control debt. Government debt, specifically. Right? If we didn't have any debt, it doesn't matter what consumer confidence is, because we're not running a deficit, so we are not beholden to any debtors, keeping our government afloat. So I don't want to blame consumer confidence, but that's sort of the last leg keeping everything up. And when it falls, shit's going to go down in a big way.
Okay. So this kind of brings up an interesting question that I was asked. I've actually been getting a lot of questions regarding what does the apocalypse look like? Because we had something that sounds kind of like what you're describing in 2008, right?
Yes. So we keep knocking on the door of it. We keep getting to the point where faith in the government or the stock market or whatever just completely bottoms out at one point or another. And the thing that the government does is they just reinflate the bubble. They just borrow more debt and say, you know what, if you buy bonds, we're going to pay you bigger, we're going to pay you better. They take more money out of the Social Security Trust Fund and they give it to all these companies that are collapsing. Because if everything looks okay for the moment, nothing is going to collapse. It's a whole Wizard of Oz, don't look at the man behind the curtain thing.
So, okay, you said we keep knocking on the door of it. When we finally tip over that point, what does that look like?
I don't know, but I think it's going to be pretty unprecedented. I think the closest we could compare it to would be the Great Depression, but our systems were a lot more robust back then. Mm-hmm. You know, if something happened and the power went out, people weren't immediately dying. With just this little coronavirus scare, people don't have access to food if the system starts breaking down or even getting a little bit of stress on it.
You're absolutely right on that. And then that stress, I think, manifests in other ways with other people. I think that right there, when it tips over to, oh shit, I don't know if I can buy food at the store, that's when people start hoarding, and that's when the decline picks up speed.
I think there's another dynamic that is just as important but less tangible. That's the social dynamic. I have no fucking clue who my neighbors are. Mm-hmm. I've lived in a lot of places in the past couple of years, and I can't say as I even know the name of any of my neighbors in the last 10 years. I haven't known anyone I've lived next to with any sort of familiarity or friendship since I was in college. When everything broke down during the Great Depression, people still talked to each other, they knew each other, they helped each other out. Right? Mm-hmm. We do not have that solidarity anymore. Before this happened, and everyone was living at the peak of the American civilization for money and goods and luxuries and freedoms, we were tearing each other apart over who could use what bathroom.
You know, that's absolutely right. That stuff is pretty well dropped off, hasn't it?
Yeah, but when the food runs out, I think it's going to be all daggers. Mm-hmm. I don't think there's any sort of social cohesion to keep people from just killing each other and taking each other's stuff.
You know, it's interesting you say that, because that's been, I think, one of the big questions that I've been continually asked, especially from our shared experience over in the stand. When social fabric breaks down to where it's essentially the Wild West, what do people do when they have the freedom to do anything?
It's tribes.
Yeah.
It's tribes. Like, if the world collapsed today, Afghanistan would not notice for 500 years.
You know what? In 100 years, it might not even know. Yeah, I agree.
I remember when we were there, I remember you talking to this old dude in the DFAC.
Yep.
Who was a local national, and he totally thought that you were Russian.
Yeah.
Because that was they just thought that they were just continually at war with the Russians. They don't know. They've got no idea what's going on in the outside world, and they don't give a fuck.
Yeah.
I think they'll be fine, because they're completely self-contained. And everything is at the tribal level, and the tribe and the family help each other, and also enforce those moral standards. The vast majority of Americans don't have any tribe that is willing to sacrifice for each other and provide for the mutual defense. I think the Mormons will be okay.
The Mormons will be okay, and this brings up a very interesting experience that I had. So, one of my classmates, he asked me, he said, so, hey, you have firearms, right? And I said,
yeah.
I might, like any law-abiding American. And he said, well, how do you feel about teaming up? And I'm not kidding. Here's a guy who's been an asshole to me and treated me like shit. But because of the social situation in college, I've been just kind of like, oh, okay, well, he's just an asshole. Not going to do anything about it. Waiting for the day I graduate so I can knock the shit out of him. But I want my degree, so, we grin and bear it. But yeah, he asked me if we could team up, and I asked him, what could you possibly contribute that I would have any interest in not just taking? Yeah, that was the end of it. When you mention the tribal part, it's interesting because a lot of people, now that we moved to online and we're doing everything, through Skype, that's what a lot of people are afraid of, that it's going to be tribal, and they're afraid that since they're not part of tribes or part of groups, that they're going to be left out or isolated and potentially more vulnerable for it. Another one of my classmates had asked me, hey, you're a part of this program. Why don't you participate more? Why aren't you more active? Why don't you support it more? And, you're a part of this community. And I said, no, I am supporting my community of veterans, who this community here has been very outspoken against. So me and my people are fine.
Yeah.
But people don't like to hear it. And especially now that it's, I guess you would say, more advantageous to own firearms or to have weapons or to have training. People are trying to get sly or trying to get in. And from what I've seen, the people that have that training or have firearms don't have any interest in carrying dead weight.
Oh, yeah, totally. I think everyone had some sort of, Hollywood idea of what they were going to do during the apocalypse. And now that we may be here, I think they're starting to realize that it was just one giant self-deluding fan fiction.
When you say self-deluding fan fiction, this, I guess, goes back to being around the college students, which it's a graduate program. They were literally talking about going to, Dixieline to pick up machetes and stuff for the zombies. I'm not even kidding.
I'm not even surprised, because so much of everyone's perception is shaped by Hollywood, and if you look at it, your typical post-apocalyptic whatever, the hero or heroine has to be somebody that the audience can relate to, so it's just some Joe Every Guy.
Yeah.
And when it comes down to it, Joe Every Guy ain't gonna make it in the apocalypse. We have lived and worked in places that look like the apocalypse is gonna look. If you want to see what the apocalypse is gonna look like, it looks like Afghanistan.
Yeah. Yeah, 100%.
And there ain't no Joe Every Guy running Afghanistan. I mean, when it comes down to it, if you want to know who's going to rule the wasteland, it's going to look like the guy who took your lunch money in high school.
Yeah. The guy that took your lunch money in high school, who lives in the trailer park, doesn't have anything going on apart from NASCAR, working on his 80s Trans Am, who works out, does math, keeps a bunch of guns, and had no aspirations in life beyond the next day.
Yes, the meth head shall inherit the earth.
Yes. It's interesting. So, talking about kind of culture, I had a conversation with my girlfriend. She wasn't necessarily terribly happy about where things were going, and especially with kind of seeing everybody start gearing up. A lot of people in the community just like, okay, well, it's time to load up mags and make sure everything's ready to go, which is well above and beyond kind of where things are currently at. But it's that preparation from, being prior service, prepare for the worst.
Yeah. And
she was pretty upset by it, just because I was genuinely excited and happy. And yeah, I hear you laughing. It's a real thing, though. And I tried explaining, this is the world I'm comfortable in.
Yeah, if you haven't been through the shit, I don't think you can understand that.
The shit is... it's its own thing.
Yes, it is. And you get comfortable with the devil you know.
Yeah. And you learn to embrace suffering.
Yes, and sort of thrive off it.
Yes. Not only thrive off of it, but thrive off of the formal or informal competition of other suffering.
I think I can sort of sum it up. I recently did a tour in Afghanistan. I was a place where we got hit by rockets, I would say, once every 3 to 5 days. Sometimes multiple, right? And it was just this utter crapshoot. You have no idea when it's going to happen. You would get... we had some sort of radar set up, so you would hear like a short warning, just enough time to sort of immediately dive for cover and hope that it didn't land on top of you and kill you and everyone around you. So the most anxious you are is at about the 3-day mark. And the most relieved you are is after it explodes, because it sort of resets the timer. And you know, okay, we get hit about once every 3 to 5 days. We just got hit. Let's deal with the disaster right now, but we're going to be fine for the next 3 to 5 days. But after it's been about 3 days, and you ain't been hit yet, everybody starts getting real antsy because you know what's coming.
Yep.
And when you're in that environment for years, and you come back to the real world, there's a little bit in the back of your mind where that timer never gets turned off. And you're like, oh man, it's been 10 years. We're way overdue for a rocket attack. So when people start loading the mags and it looks like the apocalypse is here, we're like, oh, finally. Finally, they hit the button. Shit blew up. Now we can get this out of our system and get down to business.
You are 100% right. And not only can we get back to business, but I think one of the other components is I can finally start being myself. I don't have to get up, put on a suit, put on a tie, smile at people's bullshit, any of that. I can let out the truest form of myself that I've ever experienced.
Very wise. So if you're listening, I hope all of you out there are staying safe and enjoy the opportunity to be your true self.
All right. Have a good night, y'all.